I was first. Early this fall, my phone rang. It was Lael. I thought, what in the world does she want from me? What? The universe gave me my name. Me? I mean, come on. Do you know what I've been doing the last 2 years? Do you have any idea how I hate to stand before a crowd? But after several days of thinking, and because I thought I was supposed to do this, I said yes. I have always wondered why I have such a hard time making decisions. When I'm in a group, I'm apt to defer to others. The reason hadn't occurred to me, though I remember laughing and telling others that I never had the chance to make a decision when I was growing up. I realize now it was not that I had a difficult time making decisions, but that I had spent most of my life being told what I should do, what I ought to do, what I needed to do, what I was supposed to do, and was expected of me. However, I did always know I wanted to be a teacher. From the time I was young, I loved children and surrounded myself with them. Opportunities for women in the 60s were still limited to the local woolen mill, secretarial jobs, nursing, or teaching, and there was no doubt about which one I wanted to do. Having limited funds, I enrolled at Gorham State Teachers College, now known as USM. My plans were to teach for 4 or 5 years, and then I met Jeff, my husband, in July of my sophomore year, and that was when my plan came to an end. We dated for a very short while, and then got married, and left the same night for his job, for a new job in Connecticut. Even I wondered if I wasn't pushing my luck that time. As was true at the time, the man was pretty much the breadwinner and in charge. Within 27 months, I had 2 children and was a stay-at-home mom for the next 5 years. I loved being at home, teaching my children about life, cooking, baking, sewing, and just doing what I wanted to do. However, something was nagging at me. I had stopped living my plan to finish my degree. Not that I had any regrets. I loved my life and being at home with my family, but I still knew that I was meant to teach. Jeff and I both hated living so far away from home. Our children were getting ready to start school, and I knew that if we were ever going to move home, we needed to then. We knew that we were going to be strapped financially because I had those 2 years of college to finish, but we'd tighten our belts. We decided that Jeff would continue to work in Massachusetts 4 days a week, and we would have long weekends at home. It didn't take long to see that that wouldn't work at all. We were all very unhappy, and he moved home as well. I had always been frugal, but now I really, made it more. And knowing how tough it was going to be, I had stockpiled food before we moved. And I could make 2 good meals out of 1 pound of hamburger. It wasn't easy, but we finished, and it was a real victory. I love teaching locally and took it very seriously. If I had a regret, it's that I spent way too much time on school responsibilities, even though I tried to make sure that I had quality time at home. I would be at school until past 5 o'clock, nearly every single night, and would often plan lessons or correct papers in the evening, on weekends, and in vacations. Sometimes I even carried my school bag to their games so I could correct papers while watching my kids play basketball and other sports. Too quickly, Jess and Nate were at UMO in Colby. Money was even tighter, and everybody knows there's not a lot of money in teaching. The only way to increase that money was to go to graduate school. Though I loved learning, I absolutely was not ready to take on any more work than I'd already committed to. My principal, someone that I respected and admired, wanted me to apply. Like all teachers, I already was overwhelmed with all that I had to do. But the district would reimburse me. And when I finished, I would get a stipend. After I was accepted, my goal became to finish before my son. It wasn't easy to balance my classwork, my college work, and do the best that I could for my family. I remember the very last paper in my last graduate class. It was so difficult to sit down, force myself to work, get it all down on paper, and get it finished. I finished that paper, only to lose the whole damn thing when we lost the power in this house. class. That very next year, my supervisor started talking with me regularly about becoming a teaching principal. I informed her clearly that I was not principal material. I had no desire to be. And did she remember that I had just finished my graduate work and was not going to take any more classes? As a matter of fact, I told her that if she remembered correctly, I was the one in the back of the classroom talking and laughing with the other teachers while she was conducting a meeting. I was perfectly happy where I was. But then I started to remember, we didn't have any money. Our daughter was still in college. And the pattern continued. I hated standing up in front of a crowd, talking and talking, and found it very difficult being a concise decision maker. On the other side of the coin, I loved and respected the teachers at Cornish, who were the best of the best, and I had always wanted to work with them. As teachers, we would be free of the top-down administration. We could work together doing the things that we considered important, as long as we complied with district guidelines. But, oh, the added work. My job would be my classroom, plus all the administrative duties and meetings. At first, I was allowed to sub 1 day a week to take care of all the administrative duties and a very small stipend. Of course, I would still be responsible for writing the sub-plans. The killer was that I needed to take more classes that were required in Maine in order to be a teaching principal. Hadn't I just said no to any more classes? Though I loved my work for my master's degree in literacy and could use the lessons that I learned daily in my second grade classroom, this was different. Among them was school law, budget, all required classes, but pure drudgery. And I needed to take them while teaching my class and adapting to the new principal duties. Before I applied for the position, I told those who would be my new staff that I really didn't believe one person could possibly do justice to both jobs, that I was a teacher, not an administrator. The staff was wonderful, and it took no time for us to become a cohesive force. While there were administrative duties that were my responsibility, my own style was that I wouldn't make decisions for the school without discussions and agreement. Not because I was trying to make things easy for myself, but I felt that's the way we would be most successful. Things did finally become more manageable. We purposely embraced the children, the families, and the town in our programs, and I'm very proud of the school that we became. As retirement age approached, I became even more aware about how difficult decisions can be. I love my staff and the school community, but I know that many teachers stay too long. Some for the love of teaching, some for power, and some for money. Power was never my issue. My goal had always been to retire before people wanted me to go. The district and the other things I love best about teaching were changing. I loved watching the children grow, hands-on math, which developed understanding, literacy, social studies, and science that was taught embedded in learning activities. Then we were told that there was no time for pet projects, even ones that excited children, involved the community, and were built using skills in a real-world way. Even though these projects had proven that our school would do very well on the myriad of tests that we needed to take, we were even chosen as one of 2 Maine schools to receive the National Title I Distinguished School Award in 2010, based on our test scores. Then it seemed that the upper-level administration started listening more to the school board than to educators, worrying more about money than about children. One of our smaller outlying elementary schools were closed to save money, and some were heated discussions. There were heated discussions about closing the rest. Everyone was upset. Stress levels grew. My colleagues, who were worried about their jobs if our school closed, either started retiring or accepting positions in other schools as they opened. When another second grade teacher retired, I even considered applying for her job without the added principal duties. To lower my stress level, hopefully, and then started the guilt. How could I desert my children, my staff, and my community? More and more changes, which included moving another small district school in with ours in the fall. The children and their families were extremely upset with this, and they were very worried about losing their identity. I began to get even more stressed. We were dealing with each of these changes, but as the stress built, I knew it was time for me to go. It was horrible taking the step, but I absolutely knew I just didn't have it in me to continue. As it worked out, I jumped right out of the frying pan into the fire. No break at all for all this supposed free time I was going to get. There's a reason why people start thinking about retiring in their mid-60s. Medical issues ruled the rest of my years of retirement. The first 2 years of my retirement. My sister and I, with our husband's help, divided the appointments for the older members of our families. With the help of hospice, we were able to help grant our dad's wish to keep our stepmom home until she passed. My sister's family had issues as well. And then my husband and I, thanks again to help from hospice, were able to support my 99-year-old mother-in-law live independently in her own apartment until the last 6 weeks of her life when she moved in with us. Now I can finally see the possibility of making my own decisions about what I'm going to do during retirement. Then, 3 weeks later, Lael called. Trust me, I've spent many moments in the past couple of months wondering why I said yes. You have no idea how difficult this process has been for me. Lael just asked me to present and then send information defining harbingers. As I started writing, I was everywhere with no clue of where I was going. When I met with Lael the first time, she listened and then summarized what she heard, and I started getting that uncomfortable feeling of, I met with Jess, my daughter Jess, and we talked a bit, and I explained how I was feeling. She knows me very well and said I had one big thing wrong, that none of my decisions have ever been about me. Rather, I've put everyone else first. I've never thought about things that way, or even put them together like that. In the next few weeks, I talked with Lael many times as I revised. It was still painful getting everything down on paper. Amazingly enough, things started falling into place, and I revisited my writing in another light. This process was just Lael helping me realize that I am again following the same pattern and going outside of myself for answers. She asked me if I still wanted to present. I almost said no. She gave me permission to say no. This time, I had to really think about it. I'm still uncomfortable standing here, that you can obviously see. But I really believed that I needed to do it. It's like with all those other decisions that I made along the way. They stretched my vision of who I could be, and I became a better person. It was the process that, though difficult, that made it valuable to me. I learned more about myself and the way I approach life than I might have imagined. That being said, a change is surrounding me. This process has made me remember who I am. I was born into a very strict church family. And when I was 9 or 10, I questioned everything that was expected of me. Why couldn't I wear nail polish? Why couldn't I play cards or go to the movies or go bowling? And as I got older, I spent a lot of time asking myself to explain to people the things that I did not believe about that particular church. And then it finally came to me that I needed to stop doing that, and I needed to focus on the things I do believe and not worry about the things that I did not. The reason that I'm standing here in front of an audience, my new challenge, is to be true to myself. I won't be standing in front of them. Now it's time for me to do the things that I want to do. I have had no time for my own personal projects since I became a principal 21 years ago. I want to join the gym and take better care of myself physically. I'm going to spend time working on genealogy, writing family stories, organizing and working with photos, knitting, sewing, crafting, and doing a little traveling. This process has clearly brought out the patterns of my life where I'm apt to veer off to the things, veer off from what I want to do for other people's expectations. And I'm ready to dig deep, ask myself questions, and bring out the creative part of myself that's been waiting in the shadows.